Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Gyanamurtim Tandoititam Gagana Sadrasham Tattvamashadi Laksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam Bhavati Tam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tan Namami. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We salute the leader of our souls, through whose grace our ignorance is dispelled, who is beyond good and bad, pleasure and pain, life and death, and all other pairs of opposites. We recognize that one as the only witness to the changing phenomena of this universe. May we, through that grace, go beyond darkness and delusion and realize the truth in this very life. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Devim Prasanam Pranatarti Hantrim Yogindra Pujam Yugadharma Patram Tam Sharadam Bhakti Vijnana Datram Daya Swarupam Pranamami Nityam. O Sharda, propitious goddess, killer of misery in souls resigned, savior of religion in every age, by saints and sages worshipped, O Mother kind. Give us love and wisdom, thou, O grace incarnate, to thee we bow. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karvo Vahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvisho Vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Here today, as we live stream to our audience abroad and meet with some of our local students here and guests and friends that have arrived here at the SRV ashram in Hawaii, we continue on to complete the series we've been engaged in for the last few months called Shakta Advaita Vada. That is the path of non-duality as seen through the eyes of Shaktism, or those whose ideal is the Divine Mother of the universe. A growing number of beings, particularly since Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and his advent in 1838, or 1836, I think, to 1886. He lived all of 50 years, and in that time accomplished those marvelous things, those two or three things that people talk about as unveiling the Divine Mother path for this age, bringing Mother to earth, and making her more realizable, bringing her out from hiding as what we call Mahamaya or Maya, which we'll be looking at today, and also establishing the universality of all religions. Many people had talked about that before, but Sri Ramakrishna was one who seemed to be destined to fulfill that realization of that and the demonstration of it in his life. Although Holy Mother did say about him, I never saw him trying to prove that all religions were true. He just loved God so much that he went along all the paths to find God. He had this natural thirst and hunger for God realization, and he wanted to see God through every different path. So is a very natural thing, as it always is in the case of avatar, or the one who descends. That is, descends means comes out from inside. We've been doing a lot of study recently in Divine Mother Path about the kingdoms of heaven within, or what we call the cosmic principles, or tattvas, and how maybe we failed to assign the inner realms to those tattvas because they're taught philosophically, and so we don't really think of them as realms or worlds inside of us. But and sometimes in the philosophies like Samkhya and Vedanta, there's not a lot of mention of them. But in Tantra particularly, and Sri Ramakrishna was as much Tantra as he was Vedanta, if not more. In Tantra particularly, you hear a lot about the inner worlds and lokas, and the nadis. In yoga also you hear about the nadis, or the nerve endings, which are inside the gross nerves, and how souls or prana passes along those inner network of nerves, hundreds and thousands of them, which of course are nerves that can't be dissected or seen with the naked eye, so they remain an esoteric realm of knowledge. But nonetheless, one passes along them when one dreams tonight, or passes into realms of formlessness in meditation and in deep sleep via those network of nerves, and along with one's companion called prana. I talk a lot lately about taming your dragon in modern times and in movies and so forth, but the one dragon you really want to tame probably is this Garuda bird. Garuda is the great dragon bird in Hindu mythology, or called Itihasa, and if you can master the prana, if you want to put it in eight-limbed yogic terms, Ashtanga Yoga, then you can move about the three worlds with ease and with consciousness. And remember, we had the chart last week of Lord Shiva drinking the poison of relativity. If you remember that chart that I had here on my left, and the chart was called Transmuting Poison to Nectar. And on that image of him drinking out of that conch shell, that nectar, there were all these other assignments on that. And one of them was the trident he was holding. And the staff of the trident was unmanifested Prakriti, and then the three prongs were gross, subtle, and causal worlds, or your gross, subtle, and causal body. Bodies, that is. You have three bodies, not one. So all of that is a composite package that the West knows really very little about. Even beings who are into the surface levels of tantric practice or Vedantic study or yoga, say hasa and pranayama, know very little about prana, psychic prana, and about the three worlds or the kingdoms of heaven within. In fact, in many spiritual circles, what people are trying to do is jump from the body to non-dual meditation in one swoop. It's like if there were a big, huge set of stairs, you're trying to jump from the bottom to the top. And if you're a good high jumper, you might be able to manage it, but all the steps in between remain unknown to you. So in Shakta Advaita Vada, this path of Divine Mother Wisdom, which reveals non-duality as she sees it, as the Divine Mother of the universes, the Mother of the worlds, the Vakdevi, the Mother of the Word, the Maha Maya, the great enchantress, the Mahadevi, the greatest goddess with many names and many forms who has ever won, the divine Shakti or Mahashakti, the many names they have for her, in the way that she proposes it, then you don't do away with the middle steps. You have to come to know them as you ascend them. And that's called avastas, and that's the way, avastas means stages, that's the way Sri Ramakrishna taught. If he saw a particularly astute and adept aspirant who in a previous lifetime had already mastered those steps, then no problem to take them right to the Advaitic level, like he did with Narendra. Swami Vivekananda, Narendra was his pre-monastic name, and he was just a teenager, and they're abiding with Sri Ramakrishna at the Dakshineshwar Kali temple, and going there and and being amazed by Sri Ramakrishna's personage and his wisdom and his omniscience and other qualities he had. Well, if he saw somebody like Naren, who was a Nityasiddha, past master would call him, or Nitya means eternal, Siddha means perfect, so you can draw your own conclusion from that definition. Then, of course, you can whisper the Mahavakya in his ears and he'll immediately have a high samadhi, which is what he did. He actually touched Naren, we call him, on the heart or on the head, and Naren immediately, even in his teenage years, had a very profound samadhi where he said the whole world just started fading away and as if he was just all of a sudden taken up above it, in his own words. And so that's a different case. We can't all be Swami Vivekanandas. There are precious few Nityasiddhas around, especially in this loka, this world, in this Bur loka, they call it, the world of physical objects, where people are so attached to money and fame and power and pleasures and so forth. So these great exemplars then show us what is possible. But back on the level of yoga or practice, that's a whole different level. Those are the middle steps you're beginning to navigate on your way to non-dual meditation, where you can sit and forget the world. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the closer you go to God, the further you will go away from the world. And it's not going to be a popular concept because people want to take the world with them. And that's pseudo-spirituality, really. I'm going to hang on to my pleasures and all those things just in case God doesn't exist, you see, when I get there. And so they always have these justifications for what they do, you see. But in the case of somebody like the Paramahamsa, the Kali Avatar, Sri Ramakrishna, he just gave everything away to Mother on the spot. And he didn't have any penchant for it anyway. Why should he? Because every lifetime he comes, he only comes to save beings from the illusion of finitude. It doesn't come to remove their sufferings, not their necessary sufferings. Padre Pio once said to a person who asked him, I know you're showing signs of stigmata. You must be Christ manifesting through you. Will you take my sufferings away? And Padre Pio said, if you know how valuable your sufferings were to you, you would not ask me to take them away. So it's not like we're trying to get rid of suffering that teaches us better than pleasures do. Pleasure actually entraps us for a lot longer time than suffering does. But we don't want unnecessary sufferings, or we don't want to suffer too long. Something's wrong if we keep suffering, you see. So we want to get rid of our unnecessary sufferings, and we want to find that peace that passes all understanding. And then we want to get that bliss, ananda, that is unalloyed and uninterrupted. Because have you noticed, no matter what level you are spiritually, or if you rise to a higher step and then fall to a lower step, and you're doing this dance in Maya, and the dance of spiritual practice, that something always spoils your balance. See? It's like everything is there to spoil your balance, to try and interrupt your balance. And so when you get to the level of some of the great souls that we've met on earth, like some of the Swamis and Rinpoches and Roshis and yogis and adept practitioners, you see that they're getting tired of that. They don't want their balance spoiled anymore. They want to stay in balance. And balance actually is called sattva. It's one of the three gunas. And sattva is a springboard towards getting beyond balance, because balance itself becomes tiring too. You sort of like a tightrope walker, you see, with a pole. The old days walking in the circus, right? And he does it so many times he gets bored with it. Used to be a thrill. You see, can I do it? Now it's easy. So balance gets tiring after a while, and you want something transcendent. You want something superlative. And that's going to be transcendent reality, or samadhi, or satori, or koivalya, or beatific vision, or whatever you call it in whatever different tradition you happen to be following. So that's the highest step, no doubt, and Mother reveals it through her grace in right timing. Auspicious timing is one of her great attributes, auspicious timing. Sarva Mangala, we call Sarva Mangala Mangalye, Shive Sarvatisadike, Sharnyatrambhike Gauri, Narayani Namostute. I salute Narayani, the Mother of the universe. because she reveals everything in its own perfect timing. Sarvamangala, the most auspicious of all auspicious ones. So that's the highest step. But these middle steps that we're negotiating are what this chart is all about. And this is the chart we've taken for the whole series of I'm Not Sure, I Lost Count. We had part one of this, maybe 5 classes, and then this was maybe the 5th of this. So this is the 11 one of my students says. So 11 classes we've had, and this is the final one. And we've used this chart for the whole guided tour through the kingdoms of heaven within you, which you can, depending on your temperament, call them anthropomorphic if you want. If you see reality in terms of deities, it's called deity worship, upasana dhyan and so forth, meditating on forms, then those very things are personages to you. That is, water becomes the goddess of water, and fire becomes Agni, the god of fire. You see what I mean? It just translates to your temperament. If you see things in terms of wisdom principles, that is tattva gyan, instead of upasana dhyan, you're thinking of tattva gyan, then those things become stations, like the kingdoms of heaven within, and those are peopled with beings maybe, but that's not your main concern, because you're wanting to go toward the formless, and forms are in the way. See, you could get caught in the kingdoms of heaven within you. Many a story in the Indian Itihasa, Puranas, Tantras, and so forth, about beings who get caught along the way to the highest goal, Gatam, Gatam, Paragatam, Buddha said, to the supreme goal, and they get caught in these worlds like Indra's jeweled net, you see, or some other world that is presided over by a very beautiful, benign soul. And so those beings who want, as Sri Ramakrishna wanted, to go to the very highest position and see everything from the third eye, from the witness consciousness, and prove to themselves that I and my Father are one, once and for all, and then wander the worlds as they will, easily, as I say, with ease, having mastered the prana, having known the Divine Mother in all her worlds, then they can move about freely. Those are past masters. And they could even become bodhisattvas of the highest order, or they can become nityasiddhas, or they can become Ishvara Kotis and attend upon the avatars when they come to earth, like the 12 apostles or the 16 direct disciples. Or they might even become one of the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. I say, we've studied them 2 weeks ago. That's here on the chart too. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva is the Trinity, right? And they stand at just before the entrance to the Word. The Word is written on their hand when they show you the Abhaya mudra. This is the mudra of fearlessness. And they'll see an Om sign written there. So if you go beyond this form, then you go beyond all forms and you're in the Word. And that's, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. So at that point it's with God. But then when it was God, you went to absolute formlessness. You even crossed the boundary of the Word. You went beyond the Trinity, you went beyond the Word, and then you had your nirvikalpa samadhi, or your seedless samadhi, a sampragyata. Samadhi with no form. Inexplicable samadhi, which transforms completely. Not like the lower samadhis that maybe transform a little, or get you ready for the ultimate transformation. But make the most profound effect on you. They say once you've had nirvikalpa samadhi, maybe 11 to 21 days, you'll drop the body like a leaf in a blown off leaf in a gale, you see. Hang around just long enough, you see, and then give it up. So until that highest step is attained, then you must make a study of the tattvas, or the goddesses and gods. Those are, like I was just explaining, 2 different areas of the same reality, but along which 2 different kinds of temperaments move. One's a mystic, maybe, and one's a visionary, you might say. One sees the light, one hears the sound. There's these little giveaways that reveal to you and to each person what kind of path they're following and what kind of goal they're looking at, how they will reach the goal according to that pathway, that darshana. Darshana means a clear way to see, like yoga or Vedanta or Buddhism and so forth. Some are orthodox and some aren't. They're all good, they all work. They've all taken thousands of beings to the highest goal, and to goals that are penultimate to the highest goal too. That's what I'm saying. We don't want to pull the carpet out from under anyone's feet. Say, well, I don't feel like going to worship because that's just dualism. But hundreds and thousands of beings have gotten from dualism to qualified dualism by doing the puja, by doing the worship. Why? Because they had a problem with form. See, for some reason, their karmas, they had a problem with form. Not just the form of God, a chair they have a problem with, see, or an elephant, or water. They drowned in a previous... Whatever you have a problem with in the realm of form, you have to get over that problem. It's a karma. And it can build a samskara in your mind that keeps you frozen in time. And you want transcendent of time. So you come and you deify the form then. I deify water. I'm going to use it in my puja. I'm going to invoke the god or the goddess of water. I'm going to pour it over the flower. I'm going to realize that water is homogeneous, that it flows, that it's healing. Anything I can do with water that can prove to me that I don't need to fear it anymore, that gives me ultimate knowledge of water, of flow. And then I've mastered water and I never have to worry about it again. So that's accomplished by this deification. My teacher used to say that, and he was a monk for up until his 90s when he passed out of the body. He was a Swami. He said, renunciation is not condemnation, it's deification. Now, if a monk says that to you, then you probably change your mind about monks at some place, you see. But, oh, they just want out of the world. But no, this is a monk that knows that you can't get out of the world until you deify it. Because we were talking about it in satsang this morning, on live streaming with some of you, that this deification process has to be implemented, you see, in order to get free of form. So, on the other hand, if you're a person who's moving along the inner trajectories, working your way in, you have to become aware of the wisdom principles. See, they're called 24 cosmic principles. 25, they call it sometimes, or 26 even in some systems. So basically you have 5 sets of 5, is what you're, and that's the way consciousness has marched out to become the 5 elements and the 5 senses and the 5 pranas and the 5-fold tanmatras and the 5-fold mind. It's not that hard to classify it, you see. Somebody did their homework. His name was Lord Kapila, very early on in India, and everyone used that system from then on. Finally, Shaivism used it to build another edifice on top of it called 12 more cosmic principles that have to do with inner laws and Ishvara and Sadashiva and other levels of spandas, they're called, vibrating spheres, which are causal, not just subtle, but causal. So you map out the whole inner terrain. Christ must have done that when he said the kingdoms of heaven are within you. And in his deepest meditations, seen how everything is stacked on top of each other. From the first world to the second world to the third world, if you want to put it that way. Or from the causal body to the subtle body to the gross body. From the in-breath to the held breath to the out-breath. However you measure it in whatever sets of 3s, called triputis, it's going to amount to the same thing. That is going to amount to enlightenment. Or penultimate enlightenment for you. Because it sets you up for storming the gates of non-duality. That's very rare, that you even get a desire for non-duality. Most people don't have it. Desire to be free absolutely from all form? See, that's pretty rare. So But that's what these superlative beings have. There are some other very, very advanced and masterful souls that don't have that. Maybe they don't want it. But one thing is for certain, when you have this non-dual realization, then you know the thread running through the pearls, as Sri Krishna says about in the Gita, you see. It's the thread running through the pearls. And the pearls are the worlds, you see, and the thread is that consciousness that's there, indivisible, homogeneous, immovable, pure, perfect, and where knower known and that which is to be known goes away. Like I say, the further you go towards that, then the further away goes the world and knowledge and all those things. But you can't jump it prematurely. See? So to move inwardly along that trajectory, spiritual life, is what we've been doing for the past 10 or 11 classes, and this chart has been our guide. And with that preamble, I'd like to jump into the final class of this series, after which there will be about 5-week, 6-week break while I attend to my ashrams in San Francisco and in Portland, Oregon. You can also watch live streaming there, not next weekend, but the weekends afterwards, both on Saturday and Sunday, not just on Sunday like we do in Hawaii, but you get the advantage of seeing the live streaming on Sunday morning and Saturday morning, both in Portland and San Francisco, so you can still tune in with us. So we will be studying the Svetāśvatara Upanishad in those classes, and probably some teachings about Divine Mother and Sri Ramakrishna, because his birthday is in February, and so is Lord Shiva's. So Shivaratri, there'll be a retreat in Seattle that any of you want to attend. There's still space, and we'll be going through some of these teachings according to one of the Trinity, or Shaivism, if you want to put it. I put a chart up here about Shaivism to mention briefly in the beginning of this class. So I've already taken you through many times what we've covered on this chart. What we haven't covered is what we're here to do this weekend. And we haven't really looked yet at her four arms, which if you can't really see it there if you're in the room on the live streaming. We'll be able to see the chart. Icha, Jnana, Kriya, and Dravya Shaktis. These are called the four main Shaktis. Now, there is one Shakti that's with Shiva. That's Parama Shiva and Parama Shakti. That's fire and its burning power. You can't separate them. As the outward trend goes, as consciousness spills out from that oneness and it begins to take on two-ness or manyness, it's going to have to go through these four arms of Icha, will, Jnana, wisdom, Kriya, spontaneous action, and Dravya, production of substances. Now, substances at a very high level can be thought, intelligence. Those are substances, because that's not consciousness. Consciousness is not a substance, or call it substance with a capital S, but it's beyond substances. But intelligence is the first compound that comes out of the word. If you were to see the word like Sri Ramakrishna did, you'd see light shining off it, and you'd see worlds coming out of it and going back into it without time passing. So you're beyond evolution, and you're beyond transformations and things that go on at lower levels or in the outer worlds. So that spontaneous light is flowing off it. That's the light of intelligence. So that's a very, very refined substance. But down here, substances are air, earth, fire, water, ether, and what they create, trees and lands and earth and so forth. So when I say substances, you have to look at them at gradated levels. She's the producer of those substances. That is, nature produces them through her. So that's where you get the word prakriti. Prakriti has been something that we've looked at in terms of unmanifested. There's the 24 cosmic principles I told you about in sets of fives. 5 senses, 5 elements, 5 dream senses, 5 dream elements. You see, and then the fourfold mind. Those are all your building blocks of inner to outer and outer to inner, evolution and involution of consciousness, if you could forgive the term. And then manifested Prakriti itself, the Panchakarna process, five-fold cause, how things march out in five. So that will be what is the material cause of things, you see. But Mother is behind that. You need a sentient force to make things appear so that that production can happen. And by the way, if you're an Advaitist, and this class is about Shakta Advaita Vada, then you're looking at the five-fold processes and you're going, I wonder if that really happens, you see. Or if that isn't just a sleight of hand of Maya. It's all appearance, because everything is Brahman, and Brahman doesn't change, and Brahman doesn't transform. So what is all this change and transformation that I'm seeing here with my five senses? It must not belong to Brahman, it must belong to Maya. And if I'm too far out, far flung like this, if I'm embodied in a physical body amidst five physical elements, then I must say, I'm in the realm of Maya, I have to be careful. If I'm not so far flung, if I'm in the inner worlds, and I'm seeing things like intelligence and thought and gods and goddesses and deities and so forth, then I must think I'm in the subtle worlds, you see, and I'm in the realm of Mahamaya, not Maya. That's described pretty well in this chart, which we will get to. In this chart. I've been pointing to this as if it's Spanda's. This is Shaivism's system of the hierarchy of existence. But the 24 cosmic principles and then these evolutes of Maya, 16 evolutes of Maya, will also be called into inspection here. But as we're talking now about Prakriti, that happens to do with this arm called Drovya, the producer of substances. She'll stand behind it and provide everything for the creatures that are there in those three worlds, or in all those different lokas. Three worlds means a grand subdivision. This is one of those worlds, and look how many worlds there are in this one world. Planets and suns and so forth. So you have to realize that if you went into the second world, which is like sort of correlative with your dream state, that you're working with the mind and thought and intelligence and subtle body, the subtle body of things, and desires and so forth of an inner nature, where all these desires came from is in your mind, right? Everything is in your mind. So now you're in the realm of the mind, that's called the subtle body. So if you're there inside of that realm, then you'll see those substances, you see. Subtle bodies, intelligence, thought, and various things. So that's why it's good to know, like we studied last week, the trident, you see, the three worlds, three-pronged trident, and the staff, which is unmanifested Prakriti, how he holds that. One of the Trinity holds that. Shiva is really responsible more for the dissolution of it, basically speaking. Brahma for the projection of it, Vishnu for the sustenance of it, and Shiva for the dissolution of it, so that it can come back again in another cycle. But he's holding on to that trident, and those three worlds are eternal. And the unmanifested Prakriti that everything comes out of is eternal. So now we have a new way of looking at form and formlessness. See, people are always on about, it's such a hard nut to crack, form and formlessness. But why not just think about it in terms of Shiva's trident, you see, of manifested and unmanifested Prakriti, that when things disappear from form, they go to formlessness. But that's not consciousness they're going to. They didn't come out of consciousness. They came out of the mind's thinking process. Brahman is not a producer of anything. And in fact, we're just saying that I began to suspect in this process of fivefold panchakarna that as things marched out, they got farther and farther away from the source, therefore they became less and less real. Therefore, Brahman Satya Jagad Mithya. Brahman is real, the world isn't. This is the very first thing you hear in a Vedantic circle, if you're so fortunate to graduate and attend one. Brahman Satya Jagad Mithya, they're not messing around with you, see. If you can't accept that, then you're not ready yet, you see. Go back to the world. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Divine Mother of the universe is like a cat with a mouse when Maya is manifest, you see. The cat has the claws out and the teeth bared at the mouth, you see. But Divine Mother of the Universe, when she's dealing with the devotees, is like a cat and her kitten. The lips veil the fangs, cover the fangs, and the claws are retracted, you see. So she's playing with them in a whole different way, because they've given themselves to her. That's Sharanagata. That's self-surrender. Might as well mention that since we won't have time to actually take it apart today, but it's this idea of self-surrender, giving yourself over to your ideal. I was just talking about, if that ideal is deities, good. The higher the deity, the better. Or you can work your way through the deities to find your chosen ideal. Ishta, Nishta, see, Ishtam, or Ishvara, or Ishvari, they all have that same root. But if it's wisdom you're seeking, and formlessness is your supreme goal, then you're going to work your way through it in using the tattvas. So this spilling out process, it got produced, didn't it, somehow, some way along the way. But the non-dualists say, you cannot produce an unproduced thing. That's not possible. You have to look at a thing's nature. It's swarupa. Everything has a nature. Your nature, by the way, is Atman. That's what you'll hear in Vedanta. Pure, perfect, unaffected by anything, timeless, deathless, transcendent, witness of all phenomena, so forth and so on. We can run the whole gamut of Dharmic teachings at you about the Atman, but you just have to meditate on it and realize it yourself. But the true nature of something else, what is that? Is the chair actually a form, or is it a thought form? What's its true nature? Its true nature was formless, so if it came out of the mind as a thought, so it stays its true nature, even when it's produced into a form. So you cannot change a thing's true nature. That's why all of this is one of the sixfold ways of reasoning in Vedanta, is something that has been subjected to transformation. You've taken an unproduced thing and you've made it produced. So, and then you've believed in the reality of the production. See, it's like taking a dream to be real. I mean, that's kind of cut to the chase way of explaining it. You're running a race in a dream, and all a while you think you're running, but your body's just laying there still on the bed, see. So you can't produce an unproduced thing. It's not possible. So when you're talking about production, you're talking about manifested prakriti, and when you're talking about non-production, you're talking about unmanifested prakriti, and this is the wheel. This is the Kala Chakra. This is the samsaric wheel that Buddha talked about. This is Maya, this constant cycling that's going on, and souls are buying into it. Souls who are sentient are giving away their sentiency and buying into the insentient and thinking themselves to be insentient. When you think yourself to be the body, you're telling yourself, I'm insentient, and I'm born and I die. But when you realize your birthless, deathless consciousness, all that changes, then you're just saying, this is all a matter of apparent transformation. Things are changing at a billionth of a second, as your quantum physics are going to be telling you. And then look at your mind, how quick that changed, how mercurial that is. Your moods, your minds, your thoughts, your states of awareness. And how quickly things can change when you begin to move inside these kingdoms of heaven within you. Start to explore my Father's mansion that has many chambers. Then how quick will that begin to change, you see? So you're on this wheel of manifested and unmanifested prakriti. Pretty soon you start calling it birth, life, and death, and then you call yourself born and dying. And that's all Maya. That's all Maya. You can say that. You can go to a New Age party and say, oh, it's all Maya. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. You don't know the first thing about what caught you, you see. But if you study the Dharma, you'll come to know, and you'll come to be sure of it. And then when you talk to somebody, they'll be impressed by it. They won't just finish their wine and walk away saying, what a fool, you see. So the 24 cosmic principles are there in every Indian philosophy, and they've reached far out into other systems and other religions too, so people have to take a serious look at this. And then they have to see, oh, I see, they're saying God is a parinama. It doesn't transform. And it's a jativada, it's never born. It's a jati, not jati. So if that's true, what is all this birth and death going on? And what are all these transformations taking place? If all is Brahman, then that does not wash. So philosophically, it doesn't wash, so I can't accept it. I have to go back to the drawing board and get my P's and Q's straight and dot my I's and cross my T's. Get the word right. So a little bit of a revisitation of Prakriti, manifested and unmanifested, and the Trinity that operates it, and the mother who stands behind the Trinity with her two hands, called projection and withdrawal, while this process of creation, preservation, and destruction under the auspice of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva go on like a tempest in a teapot, and nothing happens. And she stands there holding it. See, this is Shakta Advaita Vada. And that mother, whom I just chanted to at the beginning of the class, Devim Prasanam Pranatarti Hantrim Yogindra Pujam Jugadharma Patrim Tam Sharadam Bhakti Vijnana Datram Daya Swarupam Pranamami Nityam Nishayam Kusumam Parihre Chasada Charanya Baruham Rita Shanti Sudam Piba Bringamano Bhavaroga Haram Pranamami Param Jananim Jagatam Om. Renounce my mind to be the sense flowers of this earth, like the soul is a big black bee. Renounce my mind to be the sense flowers of this earth, which are produced things that were unproduced in the beginning, and I'm buying into their appearance. Drink instead the nectar of Mother's lotus feet. It's called Amrit. Right there. See that vial, that chalice she's holding, Amrit? Drink instead the nectar of Mother's lotus feet. Enjoy thus, in peace and in mirth. Then, in charm of delusion, shalt thou cease to be. You will quit being deluded. Translation of that. You have to translate the Sanskrit, then you have to translate the poetic English, you see. O great Mother of the worlds, be our salutations ever unto thee. It's just one of the many verses that Swami Abhedananda, one of Sri Ramakrishna's direct disciples, wrote in this hymn called Prakritim Paramam. So Prakriti, the producer of substances. That's what I've been trying to say for the last 10 minutes. I finally got around to it. Prakriti. And Purusha. One's insentient, one's sentient. Don't mix the two like oil and water. Do I have to show the experiment again? Shake the vial and oil and water seem to mix, but 45 seconds later they do not mix. Purusha and Prakriti do not mix. They have a relationship. But in the end, when the soul wants free, it will give up nature, it will give up form, and it will know itself as sentient consciousness. Timeless, deathless awareness, not as any form, not as anything that got produced, not as anything that's subject to birth and death, not anything that is caught in time, attached to space and objects. None of that. Or else we would just go on singing Namrichor Nashanka Name Jati Beda. In other words, no death have I because I never had a birth. In a different stotram written by Shankara, 1,300 years before Abhedananda wrote his to the mother. So for thousands and thousands of years, millennia on end, beings have known about this mother power, Shakti. If you enter into the realms of name and form without knowledge of Shakti, it's like don't leave home without it kind of teaching, you see. And how about what to speak of not knowing Shakti? You don't even know the prana, which is how she does everything. Shakti and prana are one thing, really. But it becomes prana in the outer worlds. That is, it starts to go back into the deeper worlds. In your deeper meditations, in dreaming and deep sleep, then you see how prana just sort of transforms into Shakti, and how it's one force. And you're just graduating levels of consciousness. You see. So producer of substance, this one arm here that she's holding out, Drovya, very powerful. You'll know where everything came from, and you'll know how it came. And you'll know that when it came, it was all an appearance. And when it went away, it was all an appearance too. Manifested and unmanifested. Dinosaurs are still there. They just went into an unmanifested state. Unfortunately, Elvis is still there too. He just went into an unmanifested state. And all your ancestors and all of your parents, and for time on end, going in that cycle. This is Samkhya's way of explaining what Lord Buddha explained to us thousands of years later. Samkhya was earlier. See. So you need to know how to assign these things and how to work your way through them in your deepest meditations. You have to fill in those steps between the lowest and highest. You can't go from a worldly person to a knower of Brahman in one fell swoop. Even if a great soul were to touch you on the head and give you Hasta Diksha, and you were to have a non-dual samadhi, if he wasn't there to protect you, it would destroy you. This is why in my order, we don't mess around with Shaktipat. See? We give you the mantra. Shaktipat's too powerful, if it's even authentic. And some people can use it and misuse it, as quite often happens. So we just stay away from the occult. Don't play with it. Give you the mantra. That's a little tiny seed. Tiny, tiny little seed. Plant that there in the mind, you see. Water it with a couple tears of longing. And then it begins to grow. And then you've got something that, unlike Shaktipat, starts small and grows big. Whereas Shaktipat starts big and then diminishes, and you have to go back and get it again, you see, from some source. You want to make yourself in the image of God. Cut yourself in the image of God. You don't want someone else to cut you in the image of God. Mm-hmm. On the Eastern horizon, Avatar is an exemplar, not a savior. In the East, we never fell into the misnomer that Avatar was a savior. That's for the fallen and lowly ones. They may need a savior, but you shouldn't need a savior. You shouldn't need to bother God with your prayers, with your desires. Fulfill those yourself by knowing where they come from and how unreal they are. I mean, if you know those two things, you can get over your desires pretty quickly. Oh, I think I'll produce this. Now, I know where it came from, out of me. I know I produced it. I know when I produced it, it was unreal. And so when it comes time to give it up, because it was unreal, it should be no problem. See? I renounce it. And if I can't renounce it, I better learn how to deify it. See? There's always a way in which you can work your way out. Punch your way out of that wet paper bag of Maya, you see, that you never should have got in the first place. Belief in name and form. How ridiculous, see. Sporting in name and form, sure, that's fine. As long as you want to dream. As soon as you want to wake up, then, well, go to a guru. A man has come to me from a land that never sleeps. Now all my dreams have become radiant meditations. That's how one song in India puts it. I received this all-embracing mother path from a man who never sleeps, who is always awake in the Dharma. I mean, where do lyrics of songs come from like that, you see? Not in a 200-year civilization. You don't find lyrics like that in songs. Thousands of years, maybe, there's somebody to come out and express it, you see. So that enough time has had to have explored all the kingdoms of heaven within, come back to the source, gone back out again to express via exemplifying the truth. And then while you're there, leave behind a few songs and a few stotrams, you see. You talk about mother's forearms, what about Shakale tomari icha, icha mai tar tumi, tomar karma tumi karma, loke bhale kare anke bar kar kari, angure langa ogiri, kare doma brahma pada, kare kara adogan, ami jantra tumi jantri, ami gar tumi garani, amirata tumi rate, jemni chalo temni chori, shakale tomari icha, icha shakti. That's the first of the four great mother powers, her four arms. Icha shakti means will. O mother, all happens by thy own will. All work belongs to you, others only call it their own. See? Doesn't that sound like the way Sri Ramakrishna was? See? I do nothing. That was his mantra. I do nothing. Not I, but thou. Not I, me, mine, but thou, thee, thine, O Lord. He actually knew that much English in Calcutta in the 1800s. He knew that many words. See? Enough to say, not I, but thou. See? So, and this is one of his favorite songs, Shakale tomari icha. O mother, all happens by thy own sweet will. You are the self-willed one. All work belongs to you, others only call it their own. And it goes on to explain, as I was singing, you trapped the powerful elephant in the mire, but caused the lame man to scale the highest mountain. On some you bestow the highest blessings, on other you hurl into the world of suffering. Oh, I am the house, you are the indweller. I am the chariot, you're the charioteer. I move as you move me. I think as you think through me. See? So that's perfect. I think as you think through me is the next arm, Jnanam. See? So each first will, you see, and then knowledge. So you put those two together, which order they come is hard to tell. But if you talk about mother, probably if she gets involved, then she's got this very powerful will, Icha Shakti. And she will you to open your eye, see, and set yourself free. If thine eye be single, you shall know the truth. And then you will see these wisdom principles spilling out. Why see it all as Maya when you can see it all as your own wisdom, your own intelligence? And if I have a flaw in my intelligence, then I know why the world's the way it is. I can't blame it on God or devil. Vivekananda came here in the early days and said, there's no God, there's no devil, there's just the great self. Call that God if you want. But Buddha wouldn't touch it, you see. Wouldn't call it anything. Many of the great souls wouldn't give a name to it. Gaudapada just called it Turiya, the fourth, meaning waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and then whatever happens when you get beyond those three levels of consciousness. Because waking, dreaming, and deep sleep are the three worlds, right? This is the waking world, and then tonight you're in the dreaming world, and your consciousness shifts to a deep sleep world, formless. That's this kind of formlessness, though, unmanifested prakriti formlessness. And you'll see where everything came from, in seeds. I mean, dinosaurs had eggs, but when dinosaurs became extinct, their real eggs were the thought dinosaur back in the cosmic mind. So when you're in deep sleep or you're in unmanifested prakriti, you'll see all the seeds for everything. And some of those seeds are called bijams. And if you say a bijam like Om, Aim, Hrim, Shrim, Klim, Krim, Hum, Fat, Swaha, if you say a great bijam, then some god or goddess looks at you, you see. You get their attention because that bijam happens to be associated with them. And it takes a while for it to happen, you see, trickle down here, but all of a sudden your life gets better. Or worse, as the case may be. They might send you a wrathful deity form of themselves, or they might send you a benign one. Depends on your karma, you see, and what you need. Someone was just telling me that today. Basically, I started hearing the Dharma, and then everything started going wrong. See, body ached, mind had problems. I decided I would just settle down and put on my seatbelt, you see, take a hold of the reins, and I waited it through, and now everything's great, you see. Now the clouds have lifted, the fog has lifted. The veil of Maya has been pierced, see. Shred, rent asunder, and now the light is flowing, see, through. What to speak of the prana. And now I'm beginning to see her will in everything. All happens by thy own sweet will. And I know that she's the mother of intelligence, Jnanam. And also, I began to see how things happen, Kriya. I began to see how things happen. Kriya is spontaneous action. It's too quick for us to notice. You don't even know the speed of your own mind yet. See how quick it can produce a thing in dream and deep sleep. How quick it can transition. It's beyond your comprehension. You'd have to somehow get a hold of that mind and slow it down like you would slow down a film by frames. See, grab a hold of it and pull it till it finally slows down. And that's what the yogis advise in meditation. See, just take your breath in, hold your breath, breathe out, and then apply that to your mind. Think, then quit thinking, and then watch the end of thought, and then watch the next beginning of your next train of thought come back. Now, notice that there's a space in between the last train of thought you had and the beginning of the next train of thought, and try and widen that space. It's one of the yogic techniques. You do it in breath. So I think I'll count. I'll breathe in, you see. 12, 16. 8 is beginning, 12 is intermediate, 16 is advanced. Then I'll hold for 16, you see. And then I'll breathe out for 16. And then I'll hold at the bottom for another 16. See? So you can do it with your breathing. Why can't you do it with your thoughts? And in fact, when you master the breath, then you will be able to more readily do it with your thoughts because the two are connected. Unfortunately, they're telling you, watch your heartbeat, you see. So they render everything beautiful down to the body, you see, in the West. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, sometimes opportunists from the East comes, oh, look at how body conscious they are. We can take advantage of that, you see. They're a bunch of fools. They're gullible. We'll give them all these beautiful teachings on the physical level only. We'll give them prana, but we won't tell them about psychic prana. See? Why? Oh, they're not ready. See? Well, how can we be ready if you don't give us the teachings, you see? Unfortunately, we have to work out our own karmas in that regard. So, this slowing down the process of thought and widening the gap between the trains of thought that come and go, we can finally get that down to 11 seconds. I think Patanjali says even 7 seconds of a perfect silence, then you have a minor samadhi. You ever tried not thinking for 7 seconds? Okay, ready, go, you see. Oh, I'm just thinking, I'm not supposed to be thinking, you see. I thought I'm not supposed to be thinking, crossed my mind immediately, and that's a thought. So I failed to even get 2 seconds of samadhi, you see. So you practice, you see, and you'll practice, you'll use the gunas. Impossible to do it in tamas, you see. More impossible to do it in rajas. But if I get into a sattvic state one morning, I'll find out that actually it's kind of easy to quit thinking. I like it. It's relief. See? And so I can actually sit here and maybe 10 minutes can go by and I hardly had a thought, you see. Now the only problem is not going blank. You see. There are four obstacles in meditation. Sleepiness, restlessness, dualities, thinking too much about attachment and aversion to things, and finally subtle bliss. You get attached to that, and that blows the whole thing too. Start getting some bliss, and it's, oh boy, I like that, and I'm enlightened now, you see. Big mistake. Where'd your bliss go 2 hours from now, or tomorrow? Where did my balance go even, you see? So, all of this in terms of 4 great arms, Divine Mother. Now, if you put it in terms of this chart, if we look over here, you can see that the 4 Shaktis are right there. Now, this is a kind of graph. Let me call up my copy so that I'm not craning so much. This chart is actually about the 16 evolutes of Maya, and we won't go through them all because you'd be too depressed at the end. But come on retreat if you want to deal with depression, and we'll see if you can get through the teaching. But there you see what I mentioned. Parabrahma, Parashakti, fire and its burning power, inseparable. The ultimate in Tantra, especially in Shaivism, where Shiva and Shakti are one. Male and female principle, one. Never even considered separable. And don't ask me right now why they decide to separate. That's subject for a whole other series of classes. Vichikirsa or demiurge, or whatever you want to call it. You know, why the one became two or decided to become two is a very subtle subject. But for now, the teaching, you see, there's some names for Mother as she begins to empower what's in Shiva. So Shiva is static, all wisdom. Mother is dynamic, and she'll take that wisdom out of Shiva and produce all this with it, you see. And in the production, it can get pretty far flung, all the way down to the 5 elements. 5 elements aren't, as if they ain't bad enough, you see. It can get down into 16 evolutes of Maya, which are principles of suffering. I mean, they're causes for suffering for people. Taking the body for the self, and taking the ego to be real, and all of these things. Thinking of 1,000 things at once is a good one, Shatavadana. Not being able to control your mind, and your mind gets scattered. So evolutes of Maya are there to really make the dream a nightmare a worse nightmare. So we're not going to really go through this whole thing, but notice how when Maya is taking these principles, that there's Paravidya, that's that first intelligence I was talking to you about. Vidya means knowledge. Para means supreme. So the supreme knowledge is the first thing that you'll see coming off of this bifurcation, you might say, when Shiva and Shakti separate. You could call it Om, you could call it Mahat, the cosmic mind, in different traditions and different ways of looking. Here they're calling it Mahamaya, Divine Mother, Shaktiman. There's Shakti, but there's also the wielder of Shakti, and that's her. So there you see the 4 arms that we just studied here. Icha, Jnana, Kriya, and Drovya. Remember their will, intelligence, how do you say that? Spontaneity, yes. In terms of action, but if you were to say action down here, you see, at the level of the gross world, we're not talking about that action. There's very subtle action up here. It's thought action, basically. How the mind is so quick, manojavitvam, that it can, travel at a billionth of a second as fast as it wants. It can change like that. The Divine Mother, the Mahat, the great mind, too fast to comprehend. So, and then Drovya, producer of substances. All of those are in their potential form in Shakti, Shaktiman. And as it comes down, then you'll find this form begins to coalesce. And then nature, you see, and birth of the jivas. You are here. If you could put a little note there. You are here. Birth of the jivas. And then aparvidya. See, that's lower knowledge. So you've fallen into the realm of lower knowledge through this process of intelligence that's becoming solidified. Now you can decide to go back using her and get into liberation, or you can fall and lead to bondage in Maya, and that will then give rise to, look what we have here, Avarana and Vikshepa Shaktis, right there. We studied them already. Veiling power and distorting power. People fall into the power of Maya through its power to veil and its power to distort. And they begin to, as we were saying earlier, take the unreal to be the real. Take things, objects and so forth to actually be real. Not only real, but the only reality. The world is the only reality. Sound familiar? An outright rank materialist, you say, or a sensualist, or a hedonist. So basically, one falls into deeper and deeper Maya, deeper and deeper levels of Maya, the evolutes of Maya. This is the first chart I ever made. This is T1, Tantra 1. There was no earlier chart than that. It was in the first Nectar of Non-Dual Truth issue, which you have a hard time getting hold of that right now. But when I showed this to some swamis in India, in a whole book, I said, "Do you like that issue?" And he turned the page and he said, "I like this the best," and he pointed to this chart. That's really a very great way of expressing people's predicament. The conundrum, the problem of Maya. Look at Maya. It's eternal, it's illusory, it's insentient, it transforms and changes, it's the seed of creation, it's the cause of manifestation, it has no beginning or end, it has evolutes that are similar to it, it supports karma, and it can be recognized. You don't get to anything good to the 10th. If it can be recognized, then you can withdraw from it. But when I was growing up and I was a teenager, I was looking for a word for what I saw in family, in society, in grade school, in high school, and in religion, in churches. I was looking for a word for what I saw there. Because the only word I can think of was, screw this. This is not why I came here. I do not like this, you see. So then I found out there was a four-letter word, which is the queen of all other four-letter words. I knew some four-letter words at the time. I'd heard them from my friends. But this capital M four-letter word was something that was the property of a whole collection of an ancient race called rishis, who had seen through it, seen that they were under the power of it, and extracted themselves from it. Now, they didn't do it by studying it. They did it by first getting away from it and looking at it from a distance. So, in this day and age, Ramakrishna has told us that. Don't ever study Maya. 5 elements, 5 senses, objects, and so forth. Simply draw away from it and inspect it from a distance. Otherwise, it'll draw you in. See, for instance, you'll start looking for medicines to cure diseases. Diseases which are uncurable. They all start in the mind. That's one of the great teachings of Lord Vishishta and Patanjali's father of yoga. All diseases begin in the mind. And the first disease is called rebirth. So those are ancient teachings in this religion, in this philosophy. And when you hear them, you have to consider them seriously. So you go looking for cures to diseases, thinking in various ways. So I'll get famous, or I'll get money, or people will love me for my contribution. Whatever it is, it's all ego. And it's all unreal. You're having a great party in a dream state. So you're running a race in a dream. And never know that no disease has ever been cured. To this date, that's what the healers tell me. No disease has ever been cured. You cure that form of the disease, it simply morphs to some other kind of disease and comes at you in a different way. You see. But yet the yogis are sitting there free of disease. Mostly they never get sick because they're standing back from the mind, from unmanifested prakriti, and they're finding their true nature. And when they find their true nature, then everything slows down. Mind slows down, breath slows down, heart rate slows down, lungs slow down, organs, workings slow down, and that's longevity right there. They can live as long or as short as they want. They can live 32 years like Shankara, or 39 years like Vivekananda, or they can live 95 years like my teacher. It's up to them. And they can take off bodies as easily as children grow out old pairs of clothes and put on new ones, you see, as Krishna puts it in the Gita. So, when you go through the 10 characteristics of Maya, you begin to see the effects of this distant study, the witness study the seers have made of this flummoxing problem of samsara or Maya. They've added that into the mix in their own meditations. Oh, it's eternal, we found out. It has no beginning, middle, or an end. It begins to sound like Brahman. Brahman's eternal. Brahman has no beginning, middle, and end. And so you're thinking, how do I get rid of this Maya? It persists, it persists. That's the definition for it right there. Name, form, space, time, and cause and effect. That's Vivekananda's definition he gave us of Maya. Everyone else until he came in 1893 was calling it illusion. But he called it a statement of fact. Name, form, space, time, and causality is what happens to beings when they enter the Jivatman, you see, level. Birth into the body. You're in the realm of Maya, and Maya's got you clutched tight. In order to make her let go, you have to recognize her. Game's up. The game is afoot, game's up. See? So that kind of recognition, pratyabhigya, this recognition of where all of this has come from, how it's come into being, or so-called being, and transcending becoming, the whole process of becoming, so gets you into a state of witness consciousness, if thine eye be single kind of consciousness. Then you can stand back from all phenomena and become sakshi bhutam, the witness of all phenomena. The witness of all phenomena. Now, I showed this chart just for this purpose, to show that these four arms of Mother are at a very high level of the manifestation. Symbolically, of course, four-armed goddess. If she's 10-armed, or if she's 16-armed, or if she's 12-armed, you can have a lot of other assignments there, like this chart evinces. But nonetheless, we had to look at this four-armed significance. Remember, Icha, will, Jnana, wisdom, or Paravid, and Kriya, spontaneous activity that's lightning quick and straight from the source, and Dravya, the ability to produce substances that are deep, like intelligence or thought, and substances that get more and more solid as they come out the series of cosmic principles down to solid earth. Ether is the subtlest of that level, air is next, fire, water, and then earth. And they all go with hearing, feeling, seeing, tasting, and smelling, right? Correlations. Hearing with ether makes sense, right? Air with touch, fire with sight, that's easy. And taste with water, and smell with earth. Those 10 have a connection, but those are substances, Dravya, at a very gross level. Gross not meaning horrible, just meaning apparent, solid. Now I also wanted to show you, before we leave the subject of the four arms of Mother, is that the Shaivites have another way, in another system of Shaivism. There's Kashmiri Shaivism and there's other forms of Shaivism. They each note it a little differently, but basically you can see here what the fivefold pure order. There's Icha, there's Jnana, and there's Kriya. Drauvya is missing there, but they add to it Ananda, bliss, and Chit, essence, or existence. So these are called the fivefold pure order, and those will be the first thing to appear on the level of spandas, cosmic principles. They're already far above the individual soul, Purusha. 24 cosmic principles ends with 25th or sometimes 26th, but the Purusha, the sentient self, that's sort of like Atman. But then they started with Purusha and started building in from there these 12 cosmic principles called spandas, which means vibrating spheres. And these vibrating spheres then begin to show us kingdom of heaven inside us style, these various causal worlds. What's in the formlessness that we can't see until we deepen our meditations. And we begin to see these or have communion with subtler deities when you can deepen your meditation. And you begin to even have visions and so forth. You can even visit these spandas while your body sits there meditating and your breath is stopped and so forth. Your heart rate slowed down and you've taken your consciousness to a deep level, and then you're seeing these inner worlds inside of you and you're having communion with the beings that are there, especially the deity. And of course that's, like I said earlier, according to temperament. I would say those who are studying through the level of Tatmagyan, wisdom principles, are just seeing the actual station itself. And they're not so concerned with the beings involved. They're seeing the building blocks, the staircase, and therefore taking note of it. So they can get up and down it when they want to take a conscious birth. They can come out back to earth or get out of the body easily. They'll memorize. That's more what a person involved in Tatmagyan, called a guru, is mostly doing. I would say, generally speaking, I'm not making any final conclusions here, but generally speaking, people who are looking for visions of gods and goddesses are trying to have spiritual experiences so they can get enlightened, so they can get grace. People who are studying wisdom principles, if they've made the study and concluded, they've already concluded their sadhana practice. And they're already memorizing the steps in and out so that they can move amongst these worlds at will to bring about some definitive end. That is, the end to your suffering, the end to your attachment to earth and the body. Those kinds of beings will come back and be great wisdom teachers, teachers of the Dharma. The rest of this is just interesting by way of mention. This is the idea of the Shaivites called the hierarchy of existence. So if you're looking in terms of deities plus spandas, because the Shaivites have put together that very nice combination there, then you're talking about 7 presiding deities that come out of this fivefold order. Then the Vidyas, which are, I'll read it for you here, the highest order of the universe, similar to Shiva. They transcend the world of Maya and they're free of imperfections. Imperfections start right here. This above this dotted line is free of the influence of Maya. Below this dotted line is influenced by Maya. So the Vidyeshwaras would come next. Like the Vidyas, only they have a slight separation from Shiva. they're void of the full possession of Shiva. So the Vidyas have likeness like Shiva. They want to be like the Father in heaven, who is perfect. But the Vidyeshvaras keep a separation from Shiva and keep a little bit of their individuality. So here's where the principle of ego comes in. Because ego is a very, very refined thing in India. That is, if it's not a refined thing, then it's a problem. Lust, anger, greed, envy, jealousy, fear, pride, delusion, the 6 passions and the 8 fetters and the 5 kleshas and the 9 viparyayas and all these various problems come when the ego is unripe. But when the ego is ripe, and that has to do a lot with Sharanagata, taking refuge or surrendering yourself to your Ishtam, to higher truth, when it's ripe, then ego spreads out in a way that is very, very healthy and doesn't go away for quite a long time. The ripened ego can persist and will be one of the mechanisms which will bring people, higher beings, back into the body. They'll keep a little vestige of ego so that they can come back into these other spandhas. Move in and out of the kingdoms of heaven within. Explore the chambers of my Father's mansion. Now, when you hit this line of demarcation here, you get the mantreshvaras. It's interesting, the word mantra is there, so these beings are not fools by any means. They have some sort of attachment to name and form still, and they're still slightly under the control of Maya, but they have the mantra, and they can attenuate the influence of Maya with that. So they're always able to keep themselves right at the crust of enlightenment, you see. It won't be very long before they will attain enlightenment and pierce through and take their residence with the Vidyeshvaras or the Vidyas. Or maybe even go entirely formless, like a hailstone falling in an ocean, and just merge into Brahman. But the presence of the mantra is right in their very name, the mantreshvaras. Now if you, and of course the sidebars are good here, this is all Shuddha. When you hit here it's Shuddha Shuddha. Shuddha means pure. Shuddha Shuddha means mixed, pure and impure. We're not talking morally here, I hope you understand. We're talking intelligence. Whether or not my mind is intelligent or whether it's mixed, it still has some misconceptions mixed in there and so forth, or my intelligence isn't completely illumined yet, then that's got some mixture, admixture in there. You'll find the jivatmas, 3 kinds of individual selves. And of these 3 kinds of individual selves, you'll find one section of them gets free at the time of pralaya. That's when the worlds of name and form are at the end of a cycle. They will go to freedom. But the others, they return after pralaya. Sri Ramakrishna had a funny story here. He said, an old woman walks along a beach. She has a little cottage. She goes out on the beach every day and she has a jar or a bag or something, and she picks up little flotsam and jetsam on the beach. You see pieces of glass, shell, solidified sea foam, whatever's there on the beach. She makes a collection of things. She takes them back home at night, sorts them out, and puts them in a jar, the things she wants to keep. That's his story. What the hell do you mean by this, you see? Well, he means to say that these are the beings that Mother is keeping for the next creation. She goes along the sand beach of all the worlds of name and form in time and space, and some of those souls are going to be used for the next creation. So Sri Ramakrishna said very humorously, a potter puts his pots in the sun to dry. He's got them all cast, and some of them he's burned, you see, that is in the kiln, and they're solid, and some of them are still gooey, wet, clay, but they're all formed. A cow walks through them and breaks some of them and steps on some of the soft ones and ruins the shape, you see. And the potter goes and takes the broken ones and throws the shards away, but he takes the wet ones that have been stepped on and molds them again and fires them in the kiln. So What do you mean by that? He means that some souls who are been fired in the kiln of knowledge, broken shards, they get thrown away. They're not used again for the creation next time around. But the others, he says, they have to go back to the potter's hands. That's not a good thing necessarily. I hope you're understanding me here. They get remolded, you see. They've just been stepped on by a cow, you see. So they're going to get remolded and have to be fired in the kiln of the knowledge in the next lifetime, you see. Maybe they will be fortunate enough to get thrown away. Thrown away is a good thing, see. Not coming back to the body again in ignorance. So that's what reminds me of when you take these two divisions of these jivatmans. Some that will get free at the end of pralaya, some that will have to return at the end of pralaya. Pralaya is a long time. And Mahapralaya is even longer. I could show you a chart where there's Yuga, and then there's a Mahayuga, and then there's a Manvantara, then there's a Svetashvatara Manvantara. These are all like 480,000 times 2 times 4 times 6 times 8 times 16. You're talking about much longer cycles than 4,320,000,000 year evolutionary cycle that's supposed to be going on in the physical realm alone due to the Big Bang, you see, and its end. Remember, Maya doesn't have a beginning, middle, and end. She doesn't care what you scientists are doing. She's going to roll along anyway, long after you're gone, and produce everything with Drovya. You're just looking into the atomic particle of a few physical objects. She knows about thought objects. She knows about intelligent objects. She knows about whole worlds of intelligence where souls go. So Maya is eternal. It's going to go on and on. Pralaya has to happen in cycles then. Buddha's teaching, everything returns like the river was one of his latest teachings before he passed. So he sat on the banks and saw everything go by twice, and it was cyclic. If you had stayed in the river, you wouldn't have seen that, you see. So getting out of the river is meditation, and getting out long enough away from the flow so you can see everything duplicate, triplicate, quintuplicate, and so forth. You get my gist. See? You can see how the quintuplication process happens because you've been witnessing it long enough. And you don't take it to your grave again with you. That is, you don't take the absence of knowledge of it to your grave. If you know the 24 cosmic principles, or if you know these systems, there's no reason for you to come back in ignorance ever again. You just simply know. It's a matter of fivefold trickle-down process. Those things are eternal. Maya is eternal. So that means the 5 elements are eternal, your 5 senses are eternal, even your bodies are eternal. Where does your body go? But into a memory of itself. Have you forgotten your father, your grandfather, your great-grandfather, and so forth? We still retain memory of the presidents, we still retain memory of the kings and queens of Europe, we still retain memory of the ancestors, we still retain memory of the gods and goddesses, we still retain memory of Christ, Buddha, and the illumined souls. Is it ever going to end? Will we ever forget those things? Sri Ramakrishna said, beings like Krishna and Christ are huge icebergs in the ocean of consciousness. They'll never melt. A lot of pralayas could come and go, but nobody will forget Christ and Krishna and others, Buddha. There are millions of souls who meditate on them up until their death, and then they join them after their death. That's basically what you're doing here. You're joining Shiva. But if you're keeping some sort of separation from Shiva, if Shiva is your ideal, then you're still courting union with Shiva. See? So anyway, we're coming to the end of our first half in our time, but these two kinds of beings, very important study. Some of them will get freedom at the end of a cycle. Some will have to come back and be reborn at the end of a cycle. And that's enough to know right now about this chart. Now we shall take our break and come back and look at prana, because that's a very important, right there at her navel. See, there's prana, and we've looked at that, and we'll also take, maybe hopefully get a chance to look at some of these other that we haven't seen, like Shatsampat and a few other of the entries on this chart. Oh yes, Guru and Shisha is an important one. We should probably try and look at in the remaining time. So here I send you to Pralaya or Bardo of this class. And you may have 10 or 15 minutes, or lifetimes as it were, or breaths, to recover from this barrage of teachings of the Dharma. And we will rejoin the live streaming audience. Meanwhile, they can look at these charts while we take our break. So thank you so much for your kind attention. You are now back with us here at the SRV Ashram in Honaka'a to enter into our one last hour of teachings of the Shakta Advaita Vada path. That is, Vada does mean path. So we are on that roadway, radiant road to reality, they call it, under the auspice of Divine Mother of the Universe. And this ashram actually is a Divine Mother ashram because my teacher's teacher was a last living monastic disciple of Sri Shakta Devi up until his passing in the 90s, and taught us from this ashram in Portland, Oregon, well into his 90s. And so he got the mantra from Sri Shakta Devi, and of course who got it from Sri Ramakrishna. So we have a line of succession here that we are very serious about, and mantra is one of the practices. Actually, that's also hereditary throat, if you remember the chart that we studied. And also if you came to the mantra retreat, which was about over a month ago, when we took 12 of these charts on mantra and went through them for 2 full days, going back and forth and in and out, studying the mantra very deep. So with Divine Mother and her name and her many august forms with us, we continue to flesh out all the worlds of name and form which are falling under her auspice. True, some of them do fall under the auspice of Maya. As we say, the further you get away from divine reality, then the more risk there is involved. The worlds of suffering and rounds of birth and death kick in, and that's one of the great risks of embodiment in the Burloka, or this physical realm, is to keep your mind very balanced and destroy what karmas you've brought with you. Make sure you don't form any mental impressions, samskaras they're called, in the mind, except positive ones, of course. Aklista vrittis. Vritti means vibration, aklista means positive, or ones that are free of the negativities, called klista vrittis in yoga. And then one can not run afoul of Maya. One might as well be living in the lila. There's another word that is sort of in between Brahman and its Maya, or Shakti and her Maya. Is this word lila, which means divine sport. So that is something that certain souls get very adept at as they come in and out of these amber stairs of birth and death, as we've been studying, as Sri Aurobindo called them, the amber stairs of birth and death. So that's a good metaphor to bring back, that we don't just try and jump from the lowest step to the highest step, but we use these avastas by stages and pull ourselves up by stages, spiritual growth in stages. Or as Sri Ram put it in the Adhyatma Ramayana, enlightenment dawns on the mind in stages. So you can think in terms of you moving towards enlightenment, or you can think in terms of mind, of enlightenment moving towards your mind. Either way, that preparation that you do, called qualification, is going to be very important, and you need to do it in advance of the advent of the light of wisdom or intelligence that comes through great souls that are your teachers, or who are the avatars. The avatar is like a huge ship, and it leaves a wake afterwards. So after Ramakrishna's passing, then we have this huge wake, you see, where all of us are, as it were, on those waves that he left behind of pure Shakti. As Vivekananda sang in one of his songs, I could actually sing it for you, called Achandala. He says, I make a complete offering of myself to my Guru, who is a huge wave of Shakti rising off of the indivisible ocean of Brahman. So I make a complete offering of myself, that's Sharanagata, to my divine teacher. His teacher was Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. That's not too shabby, is it? Have a guru like him. So in our exploration of many of these principles, and still on the subject of Maya and Mahamaya, we look into this principle of prana. It's also rather gradated. If you looked at a chart like this, say, what Vivekananda called the singular prana and its 5 forms. And one thing you need to know about prana that's the same as Maya is that it's insentient. This life force in you is not the main mover. It's not the great mover. It's not the conscious awareness. People get attached to life force, and that's getting attached to birth and death and life. This thirst for life forever quench. It drags to birth, from birth to death, and death to birth to soul. Vivekananda put it in his song, the Sannyasin. So we can't get addicted to vital energy. And that is the greatest addiction of all in the realms of name and form. Prana, life force. It gives everything else its hold on you, whether that hold be drugs or alcohol, or it be attachment to children, or whether it be attachment to your university degree or your ego. Prana is at the root of all, is at the hub of all of that thirst for life, forever quenched, she says. Because they conquer all who conquer self. So you're going to need to get this prana under your control. It's the first thing the yogis want you to do if you practice yoga, is to get the prana under control. You can do 100,000 asanas, that'll never get you enlightened. But if you get the prana under control, that will lead you directly to thought, and thought to intelligence. And then you've got this connection inwardly to these kingdoms of heaven within you. You can begin to remember your past lifetimes, for instance, and all that you learned there, and bring that forward to the present lifetime. That's also tantamount to bringing forward your sanchita karma into the realm of your prarabdha karma so that you can neutralize it. So there's all sorts of advantages to mastering the prana. The Upanishads, the Yoga Kundalini Upanishad says there are 2 ways, superior ways to proceed in spiritual life. The best is coming into the body with a pure mind. You already realized your consciousness previously, and you bring it with you into embodiment. The second is getting a hold of the prana. If you haven't realized yourself yet, if you're still working on your sadhana, working to perfect yourself, then they want you to get a hold of the prana. So this chart and this chart, both, I put up here for us to consider. This chart particularly has a sort of, they both have a sort of gradated way of looking at things. Let's look at this one first because we started out with it. You can see here that prana forms a very important part of transcending Maya. Maya is inscrutable. That's all you can say about it. They say it's neither real, nor is it unreal, nor is it a combination of real and unreal. Mm-hmm. Both or neither. It's just inscrutable. It can't be figured. That's why they want you to study it from a distance and not try and get into it and study it. This song that Swami Shardananda, my teacher wrote, puts it nicely. Stimita chit sindhu bedi puti loki jyoti gana koti surya galai chanchedar kanti jeno. Maya kandita karavari ujke lila keva hena ujjala ke veshe akanda gara praveshe. It goes on like that. He says, beloved companions, Who can understand this sport of Maya, this limitless depth breaking into a limit? Today, the boundless infinite has been penetrated in its subtlemost realms, and a being has appeared here as a bright, irresistible child. He arose from the depths of timeless awareness. He was a magnificent mass of radiant effulgent who pierced the surface of the serene ocean of consciousness. Koti Surya, it's as if 1,000,000 suns were melted into a mold and turned into this brilliant child. Koti Surya Galaye. So, beautiful Bengali song that Swami Shardananda sang about Sri Ramakrishna, his guru. And he served Holy Mother many years of his life too, right next to her. So, who can fathom this boundless infinite, you see, that breaks into a limit, this limitless Brahman that somehow breaks into a limit? Who causes that? You see, it's that Maya that causes that. Makes the infinite seem finite. See, makes consciousness, truncates consciousness somehow, turns it into a form when it can never be a form. It's Maya, you see, stultifying, inscrutable. Nobody can figure it. So beautiful songs written about it, and that song, of course, from the standpoint of someone who did penetrate it. This is, there arose from the depths of limitless consciousness this magnificent mass of radiance that penetrated the curtain of Maya. Later on it says, the arc of the world is sinking in the vain dream of pleasure and greed. Traveling along the shining, star-strewn path, they enter the realm of Maya. Behold, the divine and his companion have descended today into this holy land. Means India. So that's how Sri Ramakrishna and Vivekananda beamed down, as it were, beamed out. See, according to Holy Mother, Vivekananda was a seer who sat in meditation like a wooden statue for 700 years at a time, and Sri Ramakrishna, wanting to take another form. He was Rama, he was Krishna, now he wants to come as Ramakrishna. So he needs a companion, so he comes into the realm, into the highest of the fivefold pure order, or the Rishi of the seventh world, and says, will you come down with me? You see, come, gather your incomparable mind back from formless meditation. Let us go down to earth and awaken the sleeping. That's what the song says. And then the golden child whispered to the seer sitting there in meditation for 700 years, the world, the arc of the world is sinking in the illusion of lust and greed. And then the seer gazes with delight at this radiant child, wakes up from gathers his incomparable mind back from samadhi, thrilled in mind and soul, and his face becomes radiant and serene. Then they travel the star-strewn path into the world. As if, like, all of those stars up there was a lower realm that they had to penetrate. Lower means outer. You can't see there's anything beyond. It's just infinite space. You have to go inside to understand this. Kingdoms of heaven within you, that this is the outer world according to those kingdoms. So you're coming out. And when you come out, you encounter the suns, you see. That's Agni, the god fire, in so many different suns. One of those suns they've discovered now is going to take you 11 centuries to travel around it in a jet. That's how large our largest sun is so far that we've discovered. 11 centuries to get around it in a jet? That's a big ball of fire. And all of that is part of the lower trajectory of Divine Mother's worlds. You see, far out, man, far out. So you're coming, the avatar means the one who descends, so it's coming out of the incomparable state and taking this seer with him. There's this great seer Vivekananda, and they're both going down to the world through the star-strewn path. Oh, it's a beautiful song. It's just nothing quite like it. There are several songs like that written by Ramakrishna's devotees, so they must have been touched very deeply by him. Now, in this, you see the 5 pranas there, which somebody was talking to me today about for class. Prana, samana, apana, udana, and samana, or vyana. And then there's ekaprana, the one prana. So there's the one prana, it's like the god of prana, in 5 forms. And this triangulation that's there in the graph is you use this prana to understand its all-pervasiveness. Like, for instance, it's what gives earth, air, fire, water, and ether its power to shine, to flow, and to produce food and so forth. The prana is in everything. And so that's sort of the first level of things, but when you get to the psychic prana, then you get to things like the power of the mind to apprehend things. Apprehension itself is fueled by the prana. See, you're still using the prana, but you're using it at a psychic level. And you can understand that a little bit more when we look at this graph. But the senses then, these 5 senses, connect to each one of these 5 elements, and you'll find that the power of the eye to see, the power of the ear to hear, power of the tongue to taste, power of touch and all that are called indriyas. Indra is the god of gods. So indriyas means your senses are little gods. And they have this light of prana in them. So it's there. See, like I said last week, I think, you ever wondered if all of a sudden what makes you just stand up and walk? And you see your legs moving. You see your hand waving at your friend, but you feel like, what's making this happen, you see? Mm-hmm. So there was some willpower, Icha Shakti, combined there with using her prana to give you the power of animation. So animation is there too, you see. And transmigration and purification, all of these are another quintuplication that you'll find prana is. That is, if you want to purify yourself, you're going to have to use the prana to do it. Breathing, for instance, will purify the nadis, right? You start with your breath. Breathe in, held, breathe out, and so forth. Rechaka, kumbhaka, puraka, kumbhaka, rechaka, and then another kumbhaka at the end. So you're doing this 3 or 4-fold breathing process that purifies you more if you bring your intelligence and your consciousness into it, if you know what the prana is and what you're actually working with, rather than just doing it blindly. See, like some people do by rote. So, prana there then is wisdom, and that's indicated here by the Rig Veda, the Samaveda, the Yajur Veda, and the Atharva Veda, and the Yagya Ashrama, Yagya sacrifice, which is also here on this chart too. We find it is a very important part of the connection between life force and psychic life force, thought, intelligence. Again, this chart will explain it better. And then you see here, we get really towards those Icha Shakti we were studying, right? Thought, mind, and willpower. There's Icha Shakti. And over here, food, mantra, and sadhana. That is, you eat food, you do after you say the mantra over the food, and then you take the energy from food and you do your practice, and it comes up the spine. That's called prana, mukhya prana, or mukhya prana first, and then prana, and then psychic prana. And as that gets purified by the process of conscious eating, conscious meditation with mantra, and finally actually entering into a practice, sadhana, which could include things like pranayama, but would be more like study of scriptures. Thought, mind, and will get into the picture. And you're just beginning to refine the prana more and more. As if it seems like it's getting more and more refined, but you're just entering different levels of its stations. You see, like just marching inward up these steps that I was talking about, started the class out talking about. And pretty soon you're going to find that prana actually is the doorstep. Psychic prana is the doorstep to Mother Shakti herself. And you're going to graduate that particle. You can put this in terms of particle. There's the atomic particle, but there's also the atmic particle. So you go atmic particle, pranic particle, mental particle, intelligent particle, and finally no particles at all. That's not a new thought. Ramakrishna was saying, if you drop a sugar cube into tea, hot tea, you can see it happen. You see, just break into two, and then into chunks, and then into granules, and finally there's nothing. So as you get deeper and deeper in, everything gets more and more dissolved away from the physical, and your consciousness is the proving ground. That is, that's what's left over when everything else is dissolved. If you want to put it in terms of panchakosha, the five sheaths, then you're dissolving the body, and you're dissolving the prana, you're dissolving the mind, you're dissolving intellect, and you're dissolving the ego. That's pancha prana, right? The 5 sheaths of Vedanta. And when you get beyond those 5 sheaths, then the student says to the teacher, you told me to get rid of the 5 sheaths, now I did so, there's nothing left. And the teacher says, good. Now meditate on nothing. Emptiness, it's called, you see. And as you meditate on emptiness, then you'll see what's behind emptiness. That form was in the way. See, but you're not used to formlessness yet. So you have to look at formlessness inside for a long time. Then you'll see unmanifested prakriti, you'll see the seeds, you see, of everything. And then you'll go beyond the seeds and you'll hear the sound, om, hear it humming, or see the light in the distance. And everything is now beginning to dissolve to, the sugar cube is completely dissolved in this beautiful, homogeneous, sweet cup of tea, you see, called Brahman. And so this dissolution of the mind stream process is happening, and discharge and discharge both sort of explain it in less philosophical terms and a little bit easier to understand than the Shaivites might want you to study, if you were a Shaivite, you see. And this has to do more with the order of beings, deities again, and how they inhabit these stations. And this has to do more with the energy you're using to get to those stations. You have to put all this together. There are the stations themselves, there's an energy to move consciousness, and there are the deities that manifest the consciousness. And when you put all this together, then your meditations are going to be much more complete, and your progress is going to be swifter and more definitive, deeper, more profound. Scriptures will open up their secrets to you, the secrets of food and exercise, all the things at the physical level will be an open book to you. And this prana you'll realize its efficacy, and then it'll introduce you to shakti. They say in the Upanishads, shakti is like a spider. She's like a spider with a web, and the web is her prana. You see, so her web extends through all the worlds that we've been talking about, from causal to subtle to gross. And so prana is here in water and in trees and everything, and it's in your breath, and it's in your movement of your hand and the batting of your eyelids and so forth. It's all prana is at the cause of it. So you'd think prana was at the cause of everything, but you don't know yet about the psychic prana, what carries my thoughts. You don't know about shakti, which is intelligence, pure intelligence itself. So you're going to have to make these connections in your practice. And this is why you do a breathing practice. And not just to purify yourself, and it's not just to do your practice or to feel high or something, you see, or to become a healthy animal. You're wanting to connect back to your Atman, back to her. She's the purveyor of the Atman. She put the spark of consciousness called Atman in you, you see, before inception. So the idea here is that as you become aware of the value of prana, well, a story illustrates it best. One rishi was asked, how many gods support creatures and who is the greatest god? The rishi replied, the ether is that god, and air, fire, water, earth, mind, and senses are all gods. These, standing forth, manifest their power and declare, we support the body, we hold it. Then prana said, do not be deluded, I alone, dividing myself into 5 parts, hold and support the body. But air, earth, fire, water, ether, mind, and senses were not disposed to believe him. And they argued with him. So he abandoned them. And as he went out, so did all the others. Just as bees leave the hive when the queen bee leaves, so did the speech, mind, ear, eye, and all others depart when prana departed. Then, when he returned, they all praised him. Said, yes, you're the highest God. So prana is that life force that gives everything its power, its animation. Eyes see, the mind thinks. That's why food is so important in our tradition, because that's where you'll find the grossest prana in the food. And it's your task to render it pure and bring it up the spine. That's Kundalini, system. It's up here. So we talk about Atman, or you're talking about Kundalini, or if you talk about it in terms of the most refined food energy, it's called Ojas. When you've taken prana from food and become healthy, and then you haven't stopped at health, but you've begun to practice with your health. The energy you have from good health, you begin to practice. Study the scriptures, do your worship, do your mantra, serve altruistically. Whatever you do, you're using energy to do that sadhana in order to deepen your understanding and gain enlightenment eventually, ultimately. And so if you do that, then Ojas shines. And then that Ojas turns to Tejas, and you can teach others. Tejas is the aura people talk about when it's coming off of Buddha or Christ. You see a light, you see, that's Tejas. Means if you stand near them and they teach you, everything pervades you in their teaching and transforms you. You can't, if you've ever had a communion with a very high soul on this earth, like say our founder Lex Sixon, when I was with him, I always felt like everything he said had a profound effect on me. Or if I was with Swami Sheshananda, who was a monk for 95 years, or his whole life really lived in a monastic vein, then everything he said had a huge power behind it. So they've stored up this power, it's become Ojas, and then that Ojas has become Tejas, and that's another way of saying it. So whether you're talking about it Vedantically or Kundalini or Tantrically, basically that's what the conclusion has been in all of those darshanas. Now, a question I had for a long time was, where does the prana come from? And so I found this in the I think it was in the Prashna Upanishad, or possibly it was in one other Upanishad. It said, of the Atman is born this prana. Like a shadow it is spread out on that. It comes into the body by the act of the mind. So that gives you both its source and the way that it itself emanates from its source, comes into the body by an act of mind. So that's a very key piece that fits with everything else you've ever learned in yoga and Vedanta and Buddhism and so forth, is that everything is mind-only school, that everything comes through the mind. So the prana too will come through the mind. It's what's carrying your thoughts, and it's also going to be very valuable to you in meditation when you want it to carry your thoughts away. They say there's this one up moving prana, you see there, udana, this one upward moving prana that's connected with ether, and as it moves up, that's inward of course, then your thoughts go with it. So if you master the udana form of prana, then you never brood, you're never depressed, you're never unhappy, you're always peaceful, and you can also keep your mind at the level of the teachings all the time. All the time. Your mind never leaves the teachings. You're just in the Dharma. So that's why Milarepa says, when I think of the Dharma, I just can't help but want to share it with others. Because the Dharma has saved him, and his mind has received the ability to stay at the level of the teachings and not fall from there. Just always thinking about the teachings and how they connect and the beauty of that. So he's living in a different world, you see. And when you understand that, then you can begin to understand the nature of some of these beings. The Vidyashvaras, the Mantreshvaras, the Vidyas and so forth. What Shaivism is trying to tell you when it tries to describe you, those kinds of beings to you, are beings that have really lifted off of the earth atmosphere. They're not involved anymore with lower knowledge, aparvid, or with intelligence only or secular things. They've really just lifted off of that, been there, done that, and now they're completely engrossed and involved and permeated, saturated, like sweetness in sugarcane juice, Sri Ramakrishna said, with these teachings. That's all they just live that. See, there's nothing else here to be in the body for. The body itself is a teaching, and everything becomes Brahman. That's where you realize the efficacy of the Mahavakyas, the great sayings. Let's look at this one other. In case you didn't know these 5 pranas, I put them here. Prana, inhalation, ingestion. Apana, exhalation and excretion. So anything that moves in, anything that moves out. Samana, digestion and distribution. Udana, upward rising, as I was just saying. Vyana, all pervasive. If you know that one prana in 5 forms is there at all levels. Remember, this is usually what they teach you about prana in Hatha Yoga and in this contemporary age. But you're not applying these 5 and this one to other much higher levels of awareness. These 5 pranas will extend and mean different things, see, at different levels of your consciousness. You can't just restrict them and leave them with a healthy body, or with the circulation of the blood and the pumping of the heart and the lungs breathing in and out. So you don't want to leave it there. That's very, very short-sighted of you. You must take this and make the connections as the prana moves inward to the psychic prana. Just study Patanjali's Yoga Sutras and you'll find out that he has a whole section on the psychic prana, where that's where things really start getting good, see, for the practitioner. I knew there was something deeper going on here. See, now you're beginning to get to these secrets and so forth. Now, one last quote here, and we'll look at this because this is more explanatory of the prana. All the forces that are in the universe resolve back into the prana. In the next cycle, out of this prana evolves everything that we call energy, everything that we call force. It is the prana that is manifesting as motion. It is the prana that is manifesting as gravitation, as magnetism. It is the prana that is manifesting as the actions of the body, as the nerve currents, as the thought force. From thought down to the lowest force, everything is but a manifestation of prana. Jaya Vivekananda Sannyasi Vir Chiragairika Dari Jaya Vivekananda. This master who came, whom Sri Ramakrishna brought out of a 700-year meditation as a wooden statue down to earth to save the ark of the world that was sinking in lust and greed. What does he think about? See, how does he get here and leave after 32 years of work or 39 years of work? Via this mastered prana, you see. He knows it all, at all level. He knows it as the gravitational force out there, but does he leave it there, or leave it in the body, or in physical things? Or does he also know that it manifests in the nerve currents? That's a very powerful thing to know. That it manifests as that thought and its movement, inward and outward. Those are very powerful things. So that's why, for instance, if I can lay my fingers on it here, we could sing something like Mumuksha Darshita Bihamsam Gavanai Vinaykam Padukam Nitantan Matavat Samanam Dehi Me Mumuksham Madguru Viveka Nandate Prabhate Pranjalihi Narendra Shashave Narendra Yovane Narendra Kridane Narendra Shikshane Narendra Palane Narendra Harpane Viveka Nandate Prabhate Pranjalihi. Pranjali, prana. One of these beautiful hymns written by one of the Swamis. Salutations to thee, Vivekananda. You are the world teacher who grants liberation to sincere seekers. Your own burning desire for truth and freedom proved a shining example. Kindly infuse us with the same intensity for freedom from bondage. In this auspicious dawn of illumination, O Vivekananda, we offer you our eternal salutations. Vivekananda te Pranjalihi. So one verse of some 13 verses that we often sing to Vivekananda. So he knows the prana in and out. Read his commentary on the Yoga Sutras. It's called Raja Yoga. He also has Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Those 4 yogas are available at SRV centers and Vedanta centers, Ramakrishna Order centers, and so forth. Those 4 yogas are a good beginning if you want to start studying the deeper teachings in book form from about the 4 yogas. So with that quote, let's move then to explore the prana in a little different level. Not teachings you're going to get very many places, I must say. Prana, an unknown factor, mostly, as I was saying, in what we do. Now, this chart let's start with the upper quote from the Svetashvatara Upanishad. Controlling the heaven-aspiring senses and the life force with the help of the mind and intellect, the immanent soul so regenerates them as to enable them to manifest the infinite, luminous light of awareness. All that exists in the 3 worlds is under the control of prana, and prana is mother. May she transmit wisdom to us via her divine energy. Her divine energy is called Shakti. And so this chart really is pretty much about Shakti and how it manifests itself at different levels and appears as prana. If we were to start at the bottom, then you see food. So what I did here was made a coil. See, that's Kundalini. You can see the coil going up here. And then put a graph over here and another graph over here to sort of measure the degrees of cosmology that you're moving through. Could also say, as I was saying, degree of particles you're digesting. By the time that your mind begins to meditate, it's digesting mental particles, and then finally intellectual particles, and finally bliss particles, and then finally no particles at all. So you can put it in terms of that too if you like particle theories. Now, food, what I did was, at each coil I put one of these assignments and then looked in the scriptures to find an example of what they mean of prana at the level of food. Here it says, when prana pours forth as rain, all creatures are delighted knowing that there will be food. So they're not saying, oh, food is growing from the earth and so forth. They're saying, when prana pours down as food, then as rain, then everyone knows there'll be food. So they're starting back with rain, which is happening right now to us in Hawaii here. Mention her and she comes, you see. So rain is really, prana is helping that to move, like it helps everything to move. Remember, water was one of those gods that stood up and argued with prana. And when prana left, water fell flat, you see. In fact, it wasn't protected from the sun anymore, and it disintegrated. You see. So it didn't have its power of movement, its power of purity, its power of flow. So at the level of food, then, you can see that's a gross level. Let's look at the primal level. That is the 5 elements. He burns as fire, he is the sun, he is the cloud, and the wind, earth, and all of matter. He is what is and what is not, and also what is immortal. So prana can be traced right up to Brahman. Sometimes in the Upanishads they even use prana as a word for Brahman. It's very, very bitty, very amazing status that they give to this life force. As I said, is the greatest addiction for beings at all levels. That's what keeps the Mantreshwaras from transcending Maya, is this prana, you see. It's helping them do the mantra and making the connections between the energy, the intelligence with the sound of the word, and the sound of the word with the meaning of the word with the object itself. The action of doing the beads is all prana, isn't it? You can't move your fingers without prana. You can't spin the beads without prana. You can't understand what the mantra means without prana. It's how key it is. And it's a missing element in Western understanding. It's missing. So are the Tanmatras. The 5 subtle elements are missing in our understanding. We have worlds we create in dreams tonight. That's done out of thought with psychic prana. So there's 2 very big gaps in our cosmological understanding in the West. That's if we even begin to approach higher intelligence, if we even believe in it. Begin the journey, as they say. Now, that's at the primal level. Let's look at the vital level, body and senses. So you see how we're marching up the scale, how prana is, if you watch carefully, how it's going to get more and more refined till all of a sudden it's on the scene as shakti. And you're looking at something very deep and very powerful, very dynamic. The quote from the scripture, "O to thee, O prana, who dwellest in the body with the senses, all creatures carry their offerings." So body and senses would be a very important part of prana. Now, fetus and nourishment from the womb and taking on of a body, development of the senses, finally the brain develops and so forth, all of that is pretty much at the material cause of things. That's all people believe in. From the cradle to the grave, my teacher used to say, it's a quote from him, from the cradle to the grave, people believe just in the material cause of things. But they don't see the prana that brought the soul into the body prior to the formulation of the fetus, prior to the sperm and the egg getting together, prior to the sperm even being formed. They don't see that prana as being key to that process. The prana that's outside the body, psychic prana, no key to that, no clue, because I haven't mastered it and used it to explore myself yet. So I'm going to need that if I'm going to see the kingdoms of heaven within. I don't think Christ had full mastery of the prana, then you've got another thing coming. Now, let's look at the ethereal level. From gross to primal to vital to ethereal, you'll find rebirth and the ancestors. Through one of the great nadis, remember nadi is a subtle nerve inside of the gross nerves. You're going inward, not outward. Through one of the great nadis, prana carries the soul to virtuous worlds by virtuous deeds, and to sinful worlds by sinful acts, and by both to the world of men. So that's why you find such an admixture here of souls. Some good, some wicked, and some combination of both. As Vivekananda said, nothing all good here, nothing all bad here. It's all an admixture. And then, the soul is emphasizing its dark side or its light side, as the case may be. But the real teaching here is so beautiful, is that prana carries the soul along those nadis that come into the body and leave the body. So you should purify the nadis with pranayam, right? And then the nerves become open, and then they become noticed by you, noticeable. You see them. Inside you see, I see I can draw energy along there, or energy is moving along there. I can jump on that Garuda bird and move with it, you see. This is going to help me in my meditation. If I'm having a problem with attachment to form, then I'll jump on the Garuda bird and he'll take me skyward. The ether, see, the inner ethers, the inner akashas they're called. Then I can look down, no problem with form anymore, you see. I've been lifted off. Hot air balloon had its sandbags thrown out. Now I can just naturally buoyant, you see. Ramakrishna loved that analogy. I could spend a lot of time there on that and draw a whole bunch of other charts out to look at it. Rebirth and the ancestors is a nati thing. I mean that Knotty, and N-A-U-G-H-T. It's very naughty and very hard to get over, very difficult to get through, and very tempting to be coming back in that constant habitual preoccupation with ancestors and humans. And the gods play into it too, and here's what happens next, is celestial. Sacrifice, yagya. Remember how important sacrifice, we've come across it many times now. Yagya is here on the chart. And we had that teaching last week, the 12 sacrifices of the Bhagavad Gita, if you remember. Bahuvidya, that is the storehouse of the Vedic sacrifices. We looked how you could offer senses, you could offer food, you could offer hearing, you could offer study of scripture, you could offer everything to Ishvara. There's so many different ways in which you can do sacrifice. But the 5 main ways are sacrifice to the rishis, sacrifice to the gods and goddesses, sacrifice to the ancestors, sacrifice to humanity, and sacrifice to animals, plants, and insects. These are all different levels of sacrifice. They're called the 5 sacrifices. Pancha Yaga. Here's another 5 for you, you see how important the Panchakarna system is in these traditions. What does it say here about the gods? O Prana, thou art the best carrier for the gods, and the first offering to the ancestors. Thou art Indra and Rudra, and the Lord of lights. So when you take it to the celestial level, then you're finding Indra, the god of gods, and you're finding Rudra, the terrible Shiva. You're finding these benign and wrathful deities, and you're finding the realm that they exist in. It's above the ancestors. That is, within, deeper within than the ancestors. A subtler level of consciousness, a subtler vibratory particle, a different akasha, you see, more subtle, that you couldn't see. So, te dhyan yoga nugata apasyan devatma shaktim svagunayar nagudam yaha karnani nikilani tani kalatma yuktanya adidishtat yekaha. Practicing the yoga of meditation, the great ancient rishis saw the Devatma Shaktim, the divine power in everything, which, though covered by her own modes of nature, was nevertheless one and indivisible, and which had been incomprehensible to them earlier due to the limitation of their own intellects. Svetashvatara Upanishad, same quote as we were reading this great Upanishad. Beautiful Upanishad. I recommend it highly as a read, as study. That's the one where you'll be hearing in the live streaming 2 weeks from now, 2 Saturdays and Sundays from now. We're studying the Svetashvatara Upanishad in Portland and in San Francisco. So that's one sloka we memorized out of that great scripture. They saw that Devatma Shaktim. It had been veiled to them earlier due to the limitations of their own intellects. Why were the limitations of their own intellects there? Because they hadn't mastered the prana and turned that energy on their mind. There are blockages there. They're called grantis, knots. Sanskrit word for knot is granti. It means knots in the body, yes, and that's where you'll find the teaching. But they don't talk about knots in your prana, knots in the nadis. They don't talk about knots in the mind, knots in the intellect, knots in the ego. You see, there are subtle grantis too you're going to have to deal with. That's why you can't meditate well, or that's why you can't breathe well, or that's why your life isn't balanced, because there's these blockages, impediments, obstacles. Pray to him. Om Jaya Ganapati Ganesha Jaya Om. You're the remover of all obstacles, O Ganesha. So remove them. Help me remove them. Help me see them first so I can see where they are and remove them. They're not just in my body. In fact, body comes last, doesn't it? Whatever a problem with my body is because the prana has knots in it. And whatever a problem with prana is because my mind has knots in it. Didn't we just say, here it is again, of the Atman, the prana is born. Like a shadow of a man, it is spread out on that. It comes into the body by will of the mind. So, body, prana, mind. Right? So what's ever wrong with you outwardly is because of something inwardly. That's why you can't depend on medicines entirely, you see. or surgeries. See? That might treat the immediate cause, but the immediate effect, but it doesn't treat the cause, and the cause may come back on you. Whether that cause be addiction to alcohol or drugs or other things that impede you in this day and age. And you give it up for 10 years, all of a sudden it comes back on you, you see. So the root desire is still there somewhere back in the prana and the mind and how they flow together, or don't flow as the case may be. You're going to have to get at that. Let's look beyond the celestial to the divine, going up this graph. The mind and psyche. In the heart there are 101 nerves, and in each of them are another 100. And these branch into 72,000 more. In all of these move the all-pervasive prana. I've often said, or tried to say, and I actually created a chart on it now that I've shown occasionally, but if I could make a hologram here in front of us and show thousands of networks of nerves and see how prana is moving along them and see how souls go to different places. I mean, if you know the 7 chakra system, then you're getting close to that kind of thinking, because the nadis and the chakras are very connected to one another. To open the granthi, there's that word again, the knot, Shiva granthi, Brahma granthi, Rudra granthi, Vishnu granthi. There are different knots along the way named after the Trinity, and if you open up the one between the 3rd chakra and here, then you've transcended the ancestors basically, and you've arrived at the land of the devotees. You see, you're now a devotee of God, and you're for God and for nothing else but God. You're all for that. You're 100% committed and in love with your ideal. And you hear Om. You're beginning to hear Om at this navel heart juncture, you see, as a palpable sound humming inside of you. And it intensifies so much, it's at the root of all wisdom, which comes from here. And then pretty soon it's light, vision that comes here. Sound and light connect here. Shabda and Jyoti. And then all of a sudden you've got this 3rd eye which is open and single eye. So that's how powerful the system of nadis is. And here we're talking about it at the very divine level of mind and psyche. There are 101 nerves there in the heart, and each of them another 100, and each of those 72,000 others. So as you go inward, there's channels and energies passing along them and carrying thought, intelligence. And that thought and intelligence is still congealed into soul. And soul with a small s. It's called body-mind mechanism because it may be a mental soul at that point, but it still has desire in it to create bodies. And with prana it will do that. This center is all about fetus, is all about birth, is all about food digestion, is all about ancestors and humans trading off, you see. It's all about desire. This thirst for life forever quench, didn't I just say? As Swamiji looked at it and put it into a poem for us. So we should become masters of the prana and know how it flows along subtle nadis. Hundreds and thousands of them. We don't need to get overwhelmed by that fact. Are you overwhelmed by the fact that there are many rivers and canyons here? Rivers, canyons, wind currents, tidal currents, those are all prana in waves. That's the same thing here as that's inside of there. It's all channels. It's all movement. It's all sheaths. It's all holders. Dara. It's all the holder of energy. So prana needs something to hold it, to flow along. It just so happens that here it's canyons and rivers and tides and wind currents. But if you could somehow see that and convert it into what it means inside of you, in the kingdoms of heaven and within you, it would all be about prana, shakti, movement of energy, souls going from place to place. And that's even actually happening to you here tonight in dream and deep sleep. You go along these channels. You just don't remember when you wake up. Thought has its own dynamic movement, I just said. Much faster than particles move. Manojavitvam is the incomprehensible speed of the mind. It's one of the 7 victories of Tantra. If you can get mastery over the incomprehensible speed of the mind, then it's called omniscience, you see. The universal is next, where cosmic intelligence. That's Trinity type of level. He says here, the wise one attains immortality, having known the origin of the prana, its advent, its all-pervasiveness, its fivefold distribution, and its internal aspects. So here's the master of prana for you. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva will be your master of prana. And beings like Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Swami Vivekananda, who are our gurus, of course, you'll also find that out. Lakto kavane paitavane Aye siddha brahmanagya videha Taraka sharata ade kata prane Tumare kripa bayahu vigyane Jaya Shri Ramakrishna Bhagavan Karunamaya Jaya Kripa Nidana. Karitava Bhajana Narendra Sujana Vishva Vijaya Kinhi Jagajana Ko Jagatava Kari Sakain Badaye Vedahun Sakahene Tava Gunagaye Jaya Shri Ramakrishna Bhagavan Karunamaya Jaya Kripa Nidana. It's called the Ramakrishna Chalisa. Chalisa means 40. 40 verses on Sri Ramakrishna. This particular one that I sang says, Latu was blessed by you. That's Swami, one of the Swamis of the Ramakrishna order. And he became an accomplished one, a knower of Brahman. Tarak, Sharat, and many others also got enlightened. Sharat was the one author of that song I sang you about, the boundless infinite taking on a limit. They all got accomplished by the sweet power of thy grace. The word is prana in there, isn't it? Yes. Tarak Sharta Ade Kata Prana. You see. So the sweet power of your grace is that refined prana, shakti power. Vivekananda, realizing your divinity, sang your praises and became a world leader. Who can know and rightly praise thee, attempting which even the Vedas do not succeed? It's written by a man who's still living, in Hindi, a doctor in India, who's in Chandigarh, I think. So I took it and put it to music. 40 verses on Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. So, knower of the prana and how it moves, knows it so much that he can use it to bless Latu and Sharat and Tarak and turn them into, remove the final vestiges of impediments in the subtlemost level of mind and psyche and turn them into knowers of Brahman. See? Why do you think beings of that level seek out a teacher? The highest teacher they can possibly find, to remove the final vestiges, you see, of rude ignorance that might still be lingering. I once, twice, thrice, had audience with Swami Ranganathananda of the Ramakrishna order in his room. He said, bring Babaji in my room, so I got to, everyone else had to stay outside, but I got to go in his room. And I had just written this book, different stories of Ramakrishna, so I handed that to him and he flipped through it. He was so happy. And so I got to know him some, and later on they asked him, one of Surya Green was an interviewer there in India at the time, woman. She gave him an interview, and in that interview I remember him saying, or her asking, have you attained enlightenment? Have you gotten everything you want? And he said, no, there's still so much more. This is the president of the Ramakrishna order. This is like the Dalai Lama of India, right? President of the Ramakrishna order. So he's saying, oh, there's still so much more. I feel that there's so much more. And Ramakrishna himself always said that. Don't call me master, don't call me guru. Don't call me Father. Those are thorns that prick my flesh. They assume that I've reached the end of my spiritual life. But spiritual life is infinite and endless, boundless, just goes on and on and on. Like Maya, like nature, like you, like your soul, like Brahman. All eternal, everything is, everything is. And if you understand the prana, then you'll understand why everything is, everything is. That's the dynamic side of reality. Shiva is the static side, Shakti is the dynamic side. Fire and its power to burn, water and its wetness, snow and its whiteness. Can you separate them? A joke and its humor, if it's a good joke. If it's a bad joke, you do want to separate them. So at the cosmic intellectual level there, the knower of prana knows its advent, its all-pervasiveness, its fivefold distribution, and its internal aspects. And that would be a knower of prana, which is why I wanted to sing about that. At the superconscious level, that's Shakti, or Om. Now here it says, when the three matras of Om are left unconnected, there is mortality. But when they are connected in the prana, they are rightfully employed. What is peaceful, undecaying, immortal, free of fear, the seer attains by the means of Om. I think this is a quote by Pipalada in one of the Upanishads, because he was the one that said, when the three matras of Om are unconnected, then there's mortality. A-U-M, right? A, waking state, U, dreaming state, M, deep sleep state. If they're unconnected, there's mortality. But if you connect A, U, and M, waking, dreaming, deep sleep, all of a sudden, you see, you're a knower of the prana, you're a knower of the Shakti, and you're a knower of Brahman. So why are you going to leave your waking, dreaming, and deep sleep state far flung from each other? Are you going to think waking state is the only reality, dream is just a figment of my imagination, and I don't know what the hell deep sleep is. It might not even exist, because I wasn't there to see it. My ego went away, my body went away, my children went away, my money went away, everything went away in deep sleep. Yet I came back out of it. Disconnect, 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 you see. I'm just a worldly person. I'm just a material girl. See? Only thing I know is the waking state. That's real to me. So the seers disagree, and they've disagreed for people out of 10, 12,000 years. They've disagreed. So let's connect these apparently separate states of our consciousness and render them one because they are one. Om Drishyam Pratitam Pravilapayam San Matram Anandaganam Vibhavayam Samahita San Antir, inner, Antaram, Va. Bahir, outer, Antaram, inner. Kalam Yetaha Sati Karma Bande, and burn my karmas. See? So connect what is outside to what is inside and make them all one indivisible state, then meditate on that state, then pass your time contentedly and be free. Sound nice? Good teaching? Out of the Vivekananda by Shankara in 700 AD. Much, much later than Pipalada. You connect them because they seem to be disconnected, see? But they're always one. The prana is always homogeneous. Didn't it say that in the last entry? All pervasive. You realize it's all pervasive. The problem with the prana is that it waxes and wanes. Its flow waxes and wanes. Sometimes my eyes see right, sometimes they don't. Sometimes my food digests good, sometimes it doesn't. That's the problem with the prana, at least down in these lower levels of the coil, you see. But when I start connecting it to Shakti inwardly, that's a whole different, another story. That's bliss you're talking about. That's supreme intelligence you're talking about. That's the peace that passes all understanding you're talking about. That's nirvikalpa potential. That's nirvana. That's a sampragyata. That's satori. Fana to the Muslims. See, whatever religion you look in, there's an assignment for that highest state. And as far as many of these systems of India are concerned, it's a matter of prana to shakti to Brahman. A good trinity. Now, that was at the superconscious state. Now look at this graph. There's a graph that started with raw. That was food. And that's pretty good because raw food is supposed to be good, right? Paravasta. Mm-hmm. So raw. So body, senses, 5 elements, and food is all in sort of raw area of the graph. Then the refined area is rebirth, sacrifice. Then the subtle area is mind and intellect. And then the pure area is Shakti and Om. And finally the transcendent area all the way up to Kundalini Shakti herself, who is the dynamic power. Sri Ramakrishna said, no spiritual growth can be made without awakening Kundalini Shakti. So he could be talking about all sorts of levels, Buddhism, yoga, Vedanta, Tantra, Samkhya, but he's here stepping forward with a plug for the Kundalini Shakti system. There will be no spiritual progress unless you awaken Kundalini Shakti. He says a lot of things in the Gospel of Ramakrishna in those 1,000 and more pages. But when you find out that, then you want to make your introduction to her. See? And that's going to be done through the prana. If you master the prana, she'll pay attention to you. If you connect the 3 stages of Om with prana, she'll pay attention to you. So what is wrong with you, you see, that you're not making these connections? Don't you want to meet her? Do you want to know your true self? Do you know what's at stake there? I mean, suffering is nothing. Missing out of the chance to know her, that's much worse than suffering thousands of lifetimes in ignorance. You think that the risk here and the trade-off is, I just have to live again and again. Many people tell me, well, if that's true, Babaji, I'm glad to live again and again. Great. Mm-hmm. In fact, Krishna told that to Arjuna in the Gita. Know 2 things, he said, Arjuna, on this battlefield. One, that you're the Atman. If you cannot know that, then know that those things that are born die, and those things that die get born again. Where's the grief in this? Where's the grief in this? So if you're taking that tact, see, then there's a risk. But it's nowhere near the risk as missing out your chance to commune with the Divine Mother of the universe, to become her child, because you are her child. Her sons and daughters are everywhere. Some are still just living in mouse bodies, and some are living in kitten bodies. She keeps her claws retracted for the mice body. You see, that's Mahamaya. But for the kitten body, but for the mouse body, fangs come out, claws come out. That's Maya. Mahamaya or Maya, take your pick. Which shall it be? Choose. Splunge for me. I'll take Mahamaya. Now, I think we have read all the quotes. Let's end here with this last one. Like the rays of a setting sun, when a man sleeps, all the senses and their functions merge into the superior God called the mind. Then he hears not, sees not, smells not, tastes not, feels not. And they say he sleeps. At that time, the fires of prana alone remain awake in the city, holding the 2 oblations of inspiration and expiration within it. Prana alone, inhalation, exhalation, or inspiration and expiration. Prana alone exists there in that state of deep sleep. And they say, another quote from Pipalada, I think, says, then the soul rests in its own nature, like a hawk in its nest in the mountains. Mm-hmm. So that rest is pure reflection. 45 minutes of deep sleep will make you peaceful for 24 hours, but 8 hours of dreaming will run you ragged, and you'll be a nervous wreck for 24 hours, the next 24 hours of your life, or longer. So this has been a fitting way to conclude our series of classes on the Shakta Advaita Vada subject with the teaching of prana, which is Shakti. And you just have to see these connections and make them, study them, and then, of course, take them into meditation, because that's where you'll get your aparokshanubhuti, your direct spiritual experience out of that. And study what happens to you in deep sleep, when thought stops, when breathing stops. And study that emptiness and see the seeds of creation. Actually, a better word would be projection. See the seeds of all projection in your own mind, then in the cosmic mind. And then she will be very proud of you, she'll be very happy with you, and she'll bless you. And may all beings be blessed, and may all beings be fulfilled and satisfied, from the level of food all the way up to the level of wisdom food and into non-dual state of enlightenment. So here we must end, and we'll end here with one of our Vedic chants. Om Tachnayo, Om Tachnayo Ravrindi Mahe Gatung Yagyaya Gatung Ye Nupataye Daivi Swastarastu Naha Swastir Manusebhyaha Urdvam Jigatu Bhesajam Samno Astu Dvipade Samchatushpate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we make a heartfelt offering into the Great Self. May we always revere the Lord and Mother of all sacrifices. May divine blessings be upon us. May peace be unto the entire human race. May healing, well-being, and prosperity also abide among us. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.